Okay, so today's video is about plies and what they are, what their purpose is, and how we do them. And that is one of the first things we do at bar um, in ballet. And yes, I am outside. It is so pretty today. I got home from class and I was like, there's no way I'm not being outside. So I don't know if this is good, terrible lighting. I'm not sure. But we're being outside because it's so pretty. So, um, So we're just going to talk a little bit for a few minutes about what a plie is and what the purpose of it is and all the different shapes and forms that can take. So I have my notebook down here. So if I'm looking down, that's why. Um, so the word plie is French. All of ballet is French. And plie means to bend. Some people take that to mean to bend anything, but it almost like bend, plie. But almost all the time it means to bend your knees. And I will hopefully insert a clip of what that looks like up here. But the bending of the knees is what it almost always means in ballet. Um, and so that can be done on 2 feet, it can be done on 1 foot, it can be done for um, jumping, it can be done as a transition step, it can be done as a step in itself. I will say most of the time it is either a prep for a jump or a transition step when it's not done at the bar. So normally our first combination at the bar is plies, but then after that it's typically just a transition step or a step to prepare you for something. Not always, but most of the time. So why do we plie? Well, number one, to me, in my opinion, is power. If you're jumping and you do not bend your knees, you cannot get up. You have to go down to get up. So if you know that little lamp that starts Pixar movies that goes a boing, a boing, a boing, and he kind of creaks and he looks and he hops up on a letter and then he sits there and I think he turns into the eye. I will hopefully find a picture of him. So he is jumping. He's bending. His little metal rods bend. That's a plie. He can't jump unless he bends first. Does that make sense? So you have to go down to go up. You need room to go up and power to go up. So it's for power to get up, but it's also for the safety of your joints. Between jumps and all these other steps, if you go into it from a plie, a proper plie, a lot of the times it's safer instead of just straight locked knees all the time. So it's to protect your joints if you come down from a jump. So I've gone up and I've gone down instead of just going. If you plie, it makes the landing longer. So it prolongs your landing time and softens your landing. So again, that boingy Pixar little lamp, if he went down and he went up, but he didn't bend when he came down, he would go up and that would really hurt if he had knees. It would really hurt his knees. So he has to go down to go up and then down when he comes back down. And not just to go back up again, but to protect his joints. So it's for power to get up. It is for health and safety of our joints in transition steps, in throughout ballet, and in landing from jumps. It helps keep you stable. There are many times where being in a plie is more stable than being a straight leg, or going from a plie to a straight leg is more stable. So it depends on what step you're doing. It also helps to dampen noise. So again, that prolonged landing, we bend instead of just going poof. And if you have point shoes on, that's really loud. Instead of going poof, you can go. So it makes less noise when you land. It's a good turnout exercise. There's a reason that we start with it at bar. So it's one of the first things we do at bar is to help our turnout muscles from the hip, and it is to help warm our muscles up. So it warms our muscles up and helps our turnout muscles, because you do squats at the gym, it is a turned out squat, essentially. So it helps warm our muscles up. And so that's kind of that is why we have a plie. It's also just a really pretty step in itself. So, and then we move on to how do you actually do a plie properly? Because it looks simple, and in theory it is simple, but to do it right, it's normally so much more than that. Almost everything in ballet is so much more than you think it is. But to do a plie, first let's establish this. Plie can be done in all of the positions: first position, second position, third position, fourth position, fifth position. If you go to Vaganova, sixth position, you can do plie in every single one of those positions. There's a proper way to do it in every position. You can do it on 2 feet, and you can do it on 1 foot. You can do it moving, or you can do it stationary. So there is a lot of different avenues to use a plie. But in the most basic form, you would do it on 2 feet in a first position, and I will insert a clip of what that looks like. And the way that you're going to do that is you are going to bend your knees. So just try bending your knees first. So if you're turned out, your knees should track over your toes. Again, I will show you what that looks like, hopefully. And you're going to be turning out from your hips. You bend your knees should go over your toes, so your knees should go sideways. If this is the front of me, my knees go this way. But it doesn't just stop at your knees. You need to make sure that your feet are not, if my feet are on the ground, make sure your feet are not doing this, because that'll hurt your ankles. And I'll show you as I'm talking, hopefully. And you need to make sure that everything on top of you is still, especially your pelvis. So when you go down, this is my whole body, head to feet. If I go down in a plie, this should not do this. It should not go back. It should not do this. Your upper body is not supposed to move. So what I like to think about, and there's a lot of different ways to think about it, is your pelvis, which is your hip bones. So if you find your hip bones, that's the top of your pelvis. And then so all of that, top of your hips, is your pelvic girdle. So it's kind of all, it's like a big bowl, is what one of my teachers says. So when you're doing your plie, this is my example of your pelvis, I like to think about active energy. So that same teacher that calls your pelvis a bowl talks about an active plie, that you're not just going boop, boop, but that you're going shoo, shoo, that it's very intentional and purposeful, weighty, looking down and then rising back up. And that's kind of hard to like say in words, but hopefully I can show you. And how I like to think about that at an anatomical level, this is how my brain works, is this is your pelvis, this is your spine, these are the bones of your legs. This is where they connect. So I like to think about these front pieces in your pelvis are being pulled up by these arrows. These are imaginary. And then this back behind your pelvis, the back side, which I can't show you, but back behind there is being pulled down. Okay, so you have this constant pulling up and pulling down that keeps your pelvis from tilting forward or tilting back. Because you want it to be straight. You don't want it to be like this. You don't want it to be like this. It would be very straight. And how I like to think about that is that I have a constant pulling up and a constant pulling down evenly, so that I stay straight instead of doing this in a plie. And that counts for all positions of plies. And then if I show you here, again, this is how my brain works. I hope it helps somebody's brain too. This is the side of your pelvis. So again, our leg bone, femur. This is our femur, spine, pelvis. So this is from the side. So if you think about pulling up from that bone all the way into your chest, because there are some really deep ab muscles that connect all the way down and pull all the way up. And that's what you want to be thinking about, is pulling it up. And then these muscles, you want to think about pulling down. Not to where this shifts that way or this shifts that way, but that it's constantly straight. Okay? So, saying all of that, we're not just going to stand lax, because a lot of times when you're just relaxed, you're either sticking your butt out, and it doesn't have to be dramatic, but just a little bit, sticking your butt out, or tucking under, or top of our shoulders, or like slumped, or whatever. So, thinking about the pulling up from the front, I like to think about rubber bands. If you connect it on the bones of your hips and then pull it all the way up to like the top of your shoulders and connect it. So there's constant tension here. And then do the same for your back, of connect the bands and hook them up, but instead of pulling up this time, they're pulling down. So that helps my brain keep my pelvis all the way up into my shoulders still and in proper alignment, because your shoulders also can't be doing this or twisting. That's a really bad habit of mine. Still working on it. They need to be straight. If you have headlights here, they go straight. So all of that to say that when you plie, it's not just about your knees being turned out and going to the side. It's about a very active, I like to call it tension. I hope that comes across correctly, in your torso, to ensure that this line is very straight. Okay, so if you were to draw a whole line up the side of your body doing a plie, it would, your body would stay on that line. And if anything, you would get taller on that line, because there is often more room in our back than we allow. Because like I'm sitting like this, I can actually stand up taller. So that's all of those things that I like to think about in a plie. Yeah, and so that's how we do a plie, and a little bit kind of very detailed of how I like to think about doing it properly. But then also, I want to remind you that don't think of your plie as just, well, I did my plie combination at the bar and now I'm done. You have to take your plie with you. And again, that same teacher that called your pelvis a bowl and said we should have an active plie, her name's Miss True, by the way, she's amazing and she's beautiful. One of the things that she also says is don't be scared of your plie. The extent that you can go down in your plie is often a lot farther than you think it is. It's a lot farther than I think it is most of the time. So especially when you start to do your plie on one foot, it's very easy to just like barely bend and barely go up. Well, you have a lot more control and a lot more power, and it looks a lot more committed and confident if you go all the way down and all the way up, even when it's on one leg. So don't be scared of your plie, and take that plie with you. Don't leave it at that one combination at the bar, because you use it all of the time in ballet, even if you don't realize it's a plie. If you're stepping on one leg and bending it down, that is a plie, and you need it to be active, and you need your soup bowl, your pelvis to be straight, and you need your shoulders to be straight, and you need to be active in it, and you need to go all the way down, like 98% of the time. Sometimes there's times where it's not your deepest plie, but general rule of thumb is your deepest plie whenever you're plieing. And that helps with your turnout, that helps with your stability, that helps with your dancing looking confident, all of these things. So think of your plie as not just a prep for class, for those of you who do take classes or take any of my online video classes, but constantly be thinking about your plie and carrying it over to lots of combinations and giving it the attention that it deserves, because it is a very important part of what we do in ballet.